invite our panel to come up now. A short, sharp session on from 4 people that come from very different backgrounds, all of whom are very well known in the industry. Some are pioneers of the technology side of things, some are policy pioneers, some are advocates, and some are internationally acknowledged experts. And so amid that mix, we have a very, how can I describe Shamane Tan? Let me read from her bio. Shamane Tan is a new member of the Cybersecurity Advisors Network that I officially represent. And Shamane is advising C-suite executives on how to attain best practice in cybersecurity. She's just written a book called The Cyber Risk Leaders, where she interviews 70 CIOs from around the world, and we're actually giving away a copy of her book tonight when we get to the lucky prize draw. By the way, in your show bags there is a ticket stapled to the bag. You need to hang on to that because we've got some pretty substantial prizes tonight. I mean substantial prizes. So if you're around for the draw, which will be around the time of dessert, you'll be very surprised to see what we're going to pull out. So let's invite the panel up here now. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Shamane. She will introduce each of the panelists, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Peter. Alright, first up we have Alastair MacGibbon to join us at the stage, and he actually needs no introduction. We can give him a hand. So Alastair is the current Chief Security Officer at CyberCX, and Alastair is formerly the National Cybersecurity Advisor to the Prime Minister and the head of Australian Cybersecurity Centre. We all know him for implementing the government's cybersecurity strategy, but prior to that, Alastair was also Australia's first e-safety commissioner. And next up, we have Sandra Davey. So Sandra. Oh wow, what a warm applause. Yeah. Even know her, right? So Sandra is the MD of Product Space. She was a GM of the first 4G service available to consumers in Australia, and she has served as a chair and non-exec director at various associations, including Choice, the Australian Interactive Media Industry Association, and Order. And next up, we have Michael Malone. Micah is the former founder and CEO of the iiNet Limited and chairman and non-executive director of various boards, including Superloop. And Michael was 2012 Australian Entrepreneur of the Year, winner of the Charles Todd Medal, amongst other top recognitions as well. And he was inducted into the Telecommunication Hall of Fame in 2019. Very impressive. And finally, we have the lovely lady, Kaaren Koomen. So, Kaaren is an executive director with IBM ANZ and a member of the global IBM Government Program Leadership Team. She is also the Deputy Chair of New South Wales Telco Authority and has extensive board experience on over 10 public and private boards and committees. And currently serves on 4 of them. Very impressive. So I feel like I'm in the presence of great pioneers and Hall of Fame leaders. So it's really an honor to be here and hear from them today. So without further ado, just thought it'd be good to hear from each and every one of you, maybe 60 seconds blurb on your personal sentiments on how has the last 30 years of internet been for you and what are the best things about them. Right. Kaaren, you can go for it.
60 seconds. Well, it looked like 30 years ago, but not long after. In 1990, I was doing my Masters in Communications and IT Law, and I was living on a sheep station outside of a regional university where I was lecturing, and I started to use this thing called iiNet. And And it absolutely was the beginning of something that changed not only my life, but life as we know it, as Paul outlined. So that was the research and academic network, but I was there to do communications and IT law, and I could see that it was about to change the world. And I wanted to be part of it, and having been a lawyer, it also had huge implications for the law as we know it, because there was always a connection with jurisdiction, and it's a global network, and so that gave rise to lots of issues and 30 years of work.
Yeah, we definitely can dive a bit deeper into that later on. And thank you for that, Kaaren. Michael.
I sometimes think this is a bit like Alzheimer's. You know, those early years are far more sharp today than the more recent ones. And we were talking earlier on about some of those first people to connect to the internet, and you know, it was all people like research and genealogy, people with very niche interests, or you know, that felt isolated in their communities. They were the first people to get connected up. The first government department I'm aware of in Western Australia was main roads and things. You know, so it was really amazing in those first couple of years, the sort of people that were getting online. Our public high school were using French lessons with people, kids in France, that sort of thing. It was just amazing. And it did, as the Minister outlined before, I think it just opened up so many opportunities for people to communicate.
Me?
Yeah.
Matt Ted, are you listening?
Yes!
Good. I'm just checking on the singles tables at either end, which can get a bit rowdy.
But we are the closest to the bar, so hurry up.
Very good.
Typical Matt.
You were wearing your hats too.
For me, 1989, I'm about 19 years old. I'm working for an activist organisation in Canberra, the Policy Lobby Group. They get a connection to something called the Internet through Pegasus Networks, 1989. I've somehow taught myself DOS over summer, as you do. And I connected this thing to the internet, and no word of a lie. I mean, I still remember the first moment when I logged on, and I thought, fuck. This is going to change the world, right? This will change the world. And because I was an activist as well, I was like connected all of a sudden to all of these activists around the world, and I was sold, and it became my career.
I joined the police in 1989, the Australian Federal Police.
My dad's a policeman.
Very similar careers. My brother had introduced me to the internet as an engineering student, dialing up on some type of modem into the university computer a few years earlier. And I remember changing banks when I was posted overseas with the police to be with a bank that would allow me to do internet banking, so I could still deal with an Australian bank from America. But my whole career has been around the detritus that comes from internet connectivity. I'm the glass half empty guy on the panel.
Alright. So maybe we'll start off first then with Sandra. We were just chatting earlier, and then you have some really good short stories maybe that you would like to share with the rest of us.
I think firstly it's good to get the swearing out, and it's also good to get the
You're
swearing
the
out.
only one wine at the table.
Yes, great.
And the very few women that are on the internet apparently. I've got a couple of, one thing that's really, I was thinking about kind of big things, right? And we've all been involved in super big things. I reckon I've been an iiNet customer for like 20 years. Because I love you. And I have a Zip. I have a Pop 3 mail account. Who remembers Pop 3? There's people in this room that remember Pop 3. When I had to retire it and get a bloody Gmail account, I took a photo of my Pop 3 server settings, and I still got them in my iPhone. But that wasn't quite the important story. Is anyone from Osley here tonight?
Osley, I love that.
Graham Greenleaf, Andrew Mowbray. Like I was thinking over the last few days, what have been the big things that we've done here in Australia? We've done lots of great things. But I've been on the kind of user layer. So for those dudes out here that know the TCP/IP stack, which ends at layer 7, I'm 8 and 9. So Amy at the back, we're the user layer, the content layer. So I've been thinking about what made the biggest impact in Australia, and one of the ones that I came up with was Osley. So how many people in this room have used Osley? Exactly, right? And what it did was it took a public service which had been controlled by a duopoly, and it was another way of delivering a public service. So for me, Osley was really profound, and I got to be involved in it. And I'm sorry that Andrew Mowbray and Graham Greenleaf and Peter Van Dyke and Jeff, he was the cutest. Yeah, so Osley is one of my stories about kind of impact. The second very quick story is I was talking to George Fong the other day from Charity Internet, and I asked him what was the most profound, impactful thing that happened to you when you were running an ISP, and do you know what he said? Oi, you up the back! Thank you. He said that. George Fong said that one of the most important things that he did as the CEO of an ISP, he was running a regional Victorian ISP, and a single mum on the border of Victoria and South Australia stamped her feet for months, ringing him saying, this thing called the internet's coming and I really need it for my kids for school. And the day that he could ring her up and say that they had put a POP in that regional town, in a tiny little town called Eden Hope in Victoria, and gave her kids access to the internet, that's pretty fucking amazing, isn't it?
So you mentioned about different issues earlier that arose as well, right? And what are your views of that? And we were talking about like in the context of 1996, the national inquiry into the content of online services. Maybe you can share with us what are the different issues that came off the back of that.
Okay, so the smokeless thing arrives, and then the next thing that we need to ask is, well, how is it going to be used in a way that gives us the level of certainty and some of the protections that we have in the offline world, so in relation to, privacy, objectionable content, how do you protect children, how to get your, contracts enforced, how to actually get paid or get your goods, all of those sorts of issues. So, very, very, small task, and a very small team, of which we've got some people here, and David Goldstein was one of them, and at the APA, as it was then known, we ran this national inquiry, and at that inquiry, I think there's probably about 100 people in this room, maybe more, that actually came and made presentations and submissions to me and to David and everyone else. And look, it was a time of great excitement. It's wonderful to see what people could, envisage the internet to be. But at the same time, it was clear to us that it wasn't going to deliver on all of those things if it was going to be a Wild West. And it's going to be full of all the nasties. So it was about getting that balance right. And one of the things, one of the hardest things I found in my career is actually being in government, is actually have to come up with solutions. I'm in the industry, you just raise the problems and lob it over and, present it as best you can. But when you're in government, you actually have to try and find solutions. And so, that's what we tried to do. We had codes of practice, we had takedown notices that became Schedule 5 and then Schedule 7 of the Broadcasting Services Act, which then led to the E-Safety Commissioner role. So, and it really has been a process of continually improving since then. We don't have all the answers, we'll probably never have all the answers, but the only way that we're going to be able to use it is to make it a safe, secure place, but we also get all the benefits that the internet offers to us. So that's a lifelong journey. I think we're all safely in careers that will take us out to the end of our time.
Yeah, and since Kaaren brought it up, maybe Alastair, you want to talk about your observations also being the Australia's first safety commissioner. Were there any issues that you've noticed or things that you have to overcome during your stints there?
Yeah, so thank you, Kaaren, and I should acknowledge that Paul Fletcher was the was then the minister that led out under the Abbott government the formation of the Safety Office, and I think what we saw, Kaaren, from your first interactions with Schedules 5 and 7, and you can't get a more complex arcane thing than 5 and 7. Led eventually to society realising that you had to take further steps to protect people. As I said, I've always dealt with the bits that are the negative side that come with what is a remarkable connected technology, and we should acknowledge, by the way, the efforts of Peter here to bring us together tonight. When Peter called to say he was going to do it, I said he was stupid, and I was wrong. I'd also say that when I worked when I was in the Federal Police at the Royal Commission into the New South Wales Police Service, into police corruption, and I was on the child sex reference, and we made a conclusion in the early 1990s or mid 1990s that the internet would not be used by child sex offenders because they were so good at offending offline and that they wouldn't use the internet. I was wrong with that, nor did I buy Google shares, Samantha, when they listed, thinking that they were too expensive, and I was proven wrong there too. So I'm not great at predicting how the internet would go. But what I would say is society has recognised the need to reflect offline values. And former Prime Minister Turnbull used to have a phrase, and he said, the rule of law should apply equally online as it does offline. The internet should reflect society broadly, and that means you're free to be anonymous in many places. You can go about your business in a way that is unhindered and unfettered by government. But should you do something that is bad, whether it's objectionable content, and I think after Christchurch we've seen again a shift with the Christchurch Accord, where governments around the world have recognised the need to reflect societal values. I've had a remarkable career, the last half of it, the last 15 or so years, benefiting, frankly, from that increasing realisation of society. My one regret, if I could say that, is that law enforcement has not taken a volume game when it comes to fighting cybercrime. And Minister, if I could just say to you, I think the next frontier for government is to have law enforcement step up to be protecting the Australian community in a way online as it does offline. But I've seen progressive improvement in the way government deals with it. So it's a credit to government.
And I'm thinking, Michael, maybe you can share from your perspective, because through the lens of being on the board of NBN, 7 West Media, Channel 7, what's the impact of digital platforms on the supply of news and journalistic content, and the implications of this for media content creators, advertisers and consumers?
Hard to get. I give a little bit of a tip. First, I always wanted to be a journalist growing up, and that was where I wanted to be until I got an inspirational maths teacher who took me in a different direction. But so it's very funny now, two things, to be sitting on the board of 7 West, but also to have my 17-year-old son tell me he wants to be a journalist. I don't think the internet, I think there's only 3 trends that I've always noticed you can rely upon with the internet is that demand goes up, so speeds are going to be faster, usage is going to be higher. If you're a business in a long supply chain and you're in the middle of that, you're fucked, right? So the internet disintermediates people. And the last one is that every big step jump in the internet over time has been driven by consumers wanting to share with each other. Now, business tends to get you scale, and then businesses will take advantage of that scale and ubiquity. And those have been the drivers. I guess for journalism, it's been really interesting because, of course, that democratisation of the internet has meant that everyone's a news producer these days. Everyone's a journalist in some ways. But it's also meant that there's an expectation that this is free, and that's ultimately really bad for democracy. It really is. I think I will recognise again the minister I'm on a board now for regional small publishers, a grant that's being done by a $50 million grant program, which is supporting journalism in the regions of Australia. And I don't think it's got much recognition, but it's that's also one of the 8 recommendations that came out of the ACCC's reviews of the big giants as well. And I don't know the details, but I was quite shocked to see this arrangement between Facebook and News Corporation announced this week as well, to see if Facebook will actually provide funds to journalists. These are green shoots, but I don't think journalism left to itself, subject to those demands out there, is just going to die in this environment unless it has the support of governments and some form of regulatory intervention.
Thank you for that. that. So very quickly, maybe we'll just give each other 30 seconds, free for all. If you had your time again, what would you do differently in shaping the internet we know now? And if you can just add on also maybe the next 30 years, what do you think is going to look like for you? Let's try to do it in 30 seconds. Some Peter's like reminding me of time.
Well, I don't think I'd do a lot differently, to be honest. There were a lot of people that said because the internet can't be regulated, you should do nothing. I never really believed that. I probably wouldn't have argued so long and hard with those people and just got on with it. So that was one thing. In terms of looking forward, I would. I think we're about to enter a whole new frontier when we start to see the application of AI and quantum and machine learning in everything we do as well. And I would just say that the challenge is to ensure that technology is used to improve our lives, and, technology for good. And it can be used for good and bad. And so we really need to be, eternally vigilant to ensure that there are ethical frameworks built within the use of AI. We do reflect on how we're using technology and to ensure that the freedoms and the fabulous things that are part of being, the benefits of being in a liberal Western democracy are not lost as a result of technology being used in the wrong ways. And that's incumbent on all of us to engage in that.
Thanks, Kaaren.
Fight the good fight.
Yeah.
I guess I'd echo the same thing. I've just been, honoured and it's been a joy to be part of this. I can't see how I'd change anything. I'm still think myself very fortunate after 30 years to still be excited every morning to read what's happening today and how the internet can shift overnight. I would say looking forward, those foundations, every technology, it doesn't matter what it is, moves in generations. And our first generation is the inventors, so many of them here tonight. The builders that I'd like to consider myself part of, who say this stuff is wild, we've got to implement it everywhere. But then that third generation that just grows up where this is just ubiquitous. It's just, the internet is like electricity or a global telephone network. We wouldn't dream of a global point of sale system when you were building until telephony became ubiquitous. And electricity allows you to invent things like microwaves and TVs that we would not have dreamt of when electricity was being made to run mills. So I think the internet's going to be the same. My kids are growing up in a world where the internet's just in the power socket. It just works all the time, and they're just going to dream of things that we could never even conceive of.
I hate talking about the future, so I'm going to talk about the present. No. There's a few things. One, we need to stop for a minute and think about iiNet and the guys at the technical and academic community that gave us this great thing called the internet, so thank you. Thank you very much. That's kind of the network itself. Let's stop for a second and think about the power and the importance of what the ABC has brought us. They have consistently won numerous content awards over the years, and they bring us a vibrancy that is so incredibly important. So thank you to the ABC. And there's something else that was really important that I wanted to say. I can't remember it. I'll probably remember it when we speak.
I'll interrupt you.
I will.
Okay. What would I do differently? I do more to work with law enforcement agencies, frankly, to protect people. I think that is the missing link. When I started in 2003 at the Australian High Tech Crime Centre, people asked, why would you do anything about cybercrime? If I asked this audience today whether they knew someone this week who'd either been a victim or had been a victim themselves of either an attempt or a successful fraud or other things online, most people put their hands up. So the reality is that's what I would have done differently, and that's what I'll try to do in the next couple of years.
I've remembered it. I have to say it. I went back looking through my documents and I found a video interview that I did in 2010, and I said two things. I'm really worried about online privacy and who the fuck can trust Google and Facebook. Now, no, I appreciate that they're here tonight, but honestly, the tech companies, we can no longer say that we cannot help with the harm that's going online. Here's one thing I've learned. The gnarly problems we've got on the internet, we can't solve them alone. civil society can't solve them, the tech sector can't solve them, the academic technical community can't solve them. We have to solve them together, and the private sector needs to be in that conversation. So that's my activist minute just to end.
Thank you very much, everyone. And back to Sheila.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give them a hand again.
Just going to invite Sean Duca from Palo Alto, who's going to give us a very quick vote of thanks to the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everybody. The key takeaways that I sort of really picked up from all four of the panelists, and even sort of what Shamane sort of wrapped up as well. I think if we think about the last 30 years of what really got us here, some of the work that obviously the Minister did around sort of building out that sort of online security or e-safety commissioner, having Alastair as our first e-safety commissioner. I think some of the things that really resonate in my mind is to continue our efforts around how do we ensure that we have a safe and secure internet. I think a lot of the work that needs to be done and we need to continue to do is really around protecting the vulnerable people. I think there's a lot of people inside our country that really need to be sort of protected. I think there's an aging population that we really need to think about how do we protect them because they are being targeted all the time. I think a lot more work needs to be done around protecting our critical infrastructure, which is obviously being targeted all the time. And it's one of those things that I think what got us here for the last 30 years, that same playbook probably is not going to get us for the next 30 years as well. So I think it definitely is something that all of us have to come together, whether it's government, public, the private sector coming together, vendors, everyone in this room has got a part to play. I think it's incumbent on all of us to ensure that we keep on actually having and changing that narrative inside our own organisations and everyone else's organisations. So with that, thank you very much and continue with a great night.